Pháp dương vô thượng tôn, tam giới vô luân thập. Thiên nhân chi đạo, sư tử sanh chi từ phù. Nhất niệm quy năng diệt tam kỳ nghiệp. Sướng dương nhược tán thán, ức kiếp mạt năng tầng.
Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. We continue onward with lecture number 5 by reading from the text. Eliminate all reasonings, then there is nothing to compare. Stop all activity with no act taken. All activity stop but still active. A-di-đà Phật. For anyone who does not follow the Zen practices, I am sure that they would not understand these quotes. These lines said that if your mind is not active anymore, then the dualistic views, like have and have not, love and hate, do not hold you back anymore. Your mind would be clear because there is no form, no dharma to consider. Your mind would be in the great blissful state. Stop all action with no action taken. All action stop but still active. This is the directive of Zen. A practitioner who has successfully freed himself with no thoughts will no longer need to consider methods like quiet meditation to stop the mind, or active contemplation to help you understand the emptiness. Quán. His attachments are no more, and original mind is always in front of him. Now back to the text. If dualistic views are no more, then how can one exist? In the final completeness, rules and regulations do not exist. If dualistic views do not exist in the mind anymore, then your mind would also be empty. It would be complete in itself, and there are no rules to follow. Normally, when a practitioner first starts out, he would have certain regimens or plans to follow. At 6 p.m., he would have to sit and meditate for 2 hours. Then at midnight, he would have to wake up and meditate for another 2 hours. But for someone who has seen his original mind, he does not need to do this to control his mind anymore. He would be at the thoughtless and impartial state. His original mind would always be shining through. These are actual experiences once you have achieved. It is not based on words you have heard or debate you have made, but actual practice and experiences. Now back to the text. With the impartial mind, all activities are put down. No further in doubt, correct faith comes into existence. Like I have mentioned before, all dharmas in the world are impartial. There is no high nor low, but because we are deluded, then we discriminate against the forms and the minds and create biases. If you are in the quiet original mind, then there would be no high nor low. The person who realizes that the worldly dharmas are actively and passively empty, then his mind does not initiate thoughts anymore. His seventh consciousness, magnetic, which is where the ego resides and does logical reasoning, would also automatically self-destruct and achieve an impartial mind. You all should remember that the sutra mentioned that the Buddha had 3 bodies and 4 minds. The 4 minds are described as follows. Your 5 faculties, which include eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, represent the first mind, thân sở tác trí. Your thought represent nhị quan sắc trí, which is the second mind. Your 7th consciousness, which is the active mind that helps you to discriminate, become bình đẳng tánh trí, which is the third mind. The 8th consciousness, which is your subconscious mind, become đại dương cảnh trí, which is the fourth mind. So when a practitioner has eliminated his thoughts and ego, then he has entered the path of empty mind. The passive and active generation of thoughts are now completely eliminated. Any doubts about his Buddha mind are eliminated. Evil and false thoughts are eliminated. Right thoughts and Buddha Dhammas appear. Now back to the text. All things disappear. Should not hold on to them. Empty, bright, and self-illuminated, the mind does not exert. In these 4 lines, Master Tang Sang let you know how you can practice without coming and going. When your minds are not attached to the world, then your 6 senses would be clear and free. Your mind would brightly illuminate in all 10 directions. At this point, you can see that this practitioner did not have to struggle or make big effort in order to achieve a peaceful mind. In Zen, the practitioner applies the supreme meditation technique. He doesn't use either the instant or gradual approach. Đốn và tiệm. The instant technique uses the one thought to enter the no birth stage. The gradual technique uses all kinds of techniques to tie down or control his thoughts, so his mind could enter a blissful state. The Zen master does not teach these 2 methods. He would emphasize to the student to not allow his thought to rise, not allow the student's 6 faculties to enter the 6 sensory worlds. Even if the faculties join the sensory world, he should not raise his conscious thoughts afterward. If he could do this, after a period of time, he would be able to enter samadhi. He does not have to initiate thoughts or exert physical efforts. Now back to the text. It is not a place of thinking. Logic and reasoning could not be applied. Once you have entered this state, no word can describe it. If you discuss it, then you are using your consciousness, not your original mind. Logic and reasoning can be applied to math or the physical world, but not in Buddha nature, where the more you use logic, the further you are from it. Therefore, I often tell you all that if you look for a teacher, you should find someone who has achieved enlightenment already, so he could correctly guide you, else it would be the blind leading the blind. Only the enlightened one would understand the Buddha world. The Buddha once raised up a flower in front of his followers, but they were all confused. Only the first Zen Patriarch, Mahakassapa, understood the Buddha's intentions and smiled. They were 2 bodies, but of one mind. Now back to the text. In the true suchness Dhamma world, there is no others, no self. It is urgent to be in accordance to the way by communicating in non-dualistic words. True suchness here is referring to your Buddha nature. This nature exists in all beings. If a practitioner has seen his Buddha nature, then all of his 6 senses would have returned to his original mind, where it is truly blissful. The mind that still distinguishes between other and self will slowly disappear. The thought of ego, and the act of talking about others also disappear. They realize that this world is just an illusion and not worth fighting over. If you still gossip about others, then the purpose is to raise your image or fame. Let the wide net of your ego disappear. Then your mind will settle and become peaceful. If you gossip about others, and he or she did not commit that sin, then the negative karma due to your gossip would be quite large. Every action has a karmic retribution, so you don't need to be concerned about others' actions. Karma is just and does not spare anyone who carry out misdeeds. Just focus on 6 faculties and your practices, and eventually your original mind would appear. The practitioner can reach this point only if he does not initiate dualistic thoughts. Now back to the text. In the non-dualistic world, everything is equal. Nothing is excluded. The wise in all 10 directions, they all follow this principle. When the thoughts of a being contain have and have not, love and hate, then he is still bound by his ego and acts with biases. If he can abandon them and live a life without duality, then at that moment he would realize that his 5 senses are truly empty, and what is there to hold his mind back? Now his 6 senses are free and not bound by the cycles of birth. He will be happy to have gone beyond the reaches of the 10 demons of hell. Furthermore, the heavenly gods will come and pay their respect to him. He has become a teacher of both men and gods. The wise beings from all 10 directions use this same non-duality method to enter the great gate of enlightenment. Do you see now that if you still use the thoughts of love, hate, have and have not, then you are still stuck in the common world? Master Cao Yifeng once said, if a practitioner can stop initiating thought from 1 to 7 days, then for certain he will achieve the Great Awakening. Đại Ngộ Đại Triệt. In just 7 days, you put your mind into the world of no thoughts. You will achieve the Great Awakening. This quote has given Zen practitioner great hopes and assurances. A practitioner who has seen his original mind and implemented no thought has an impartial and free mind. It is so simple, right? No effort is needed. Just following the guidance of Master Yifeng will be enough. Now back to the text. The principle is not quick or slow. One thought lasts for 1,000 years. Exists nowhere but yet everywhere. The 10 directions are in front of your eyes. Once the practitioner minds have achieved no thought, then time and space are not applicable anymore. It is similar to the Tathagata mind. All beings have this mind. It does not increase in the saint's mind nor decrease in the common's mind. The deluded are attracted to the worldly thoughts and trap their mind in dualistic and egotistic world, which block their original mind. The awakened practitioner knows that everything is an illusion, so he does not let his mind be stuck in worldly thoughts and keep his mind bright and clear. Now back to the text. The smallest is the same as the largest. Forget about the worldly forms. The largest is the same as the smallest. The boundaries cannot be seen. Ayida Phap. For anyone who is not a Zen practitioner, I am certain that these 4 lines could not be understood. Our minds sometimes have to shrink down to a very small level of particles. In the morning, When you look at the ray of sunlight that goes into your room, you can see small particles flying around. We call these particles kích pigeon. The second type of particle is called ngư mao pigeon. These are small particles resting on the hair of a buffalo. These particles are smaller than the first one flying in the sunlight. The third type is called yuen mao đầu trần. These particles rest on the tip of the hair of a goat. These are smaller than the second type that sit on top of the hair of the buffalo. The fourth type is called thổ mao đầu trần. These particles sit on top of the hair of a rabbit. These are smaller than the third particle, which sit on top of the goat's hair. The fifth type of particles is called thủy trần. These particles can be found sitting on top of a river. It doesn't sink down into the water because it is very small, so it floats. The sixth type is called kim trần. These particles are so small that it can fit within the porousness of a mirror. The seventh type is called vi trần, which is mentioned here in the text. It is smaller than the sixth type, kim trần. The particle that could not be divided down any further is called lâm hư trần. It is so small that you can describe it as part of the emptiness. Today, you have a chance to learn about different types of particles. Our minds are so great that it could shrink down to the seventh type of particle called vi trần, and it could be as big as the great chiliocosm. When your mind is not restricted by time and space, then it could be part of the mind Dharma. Let me tell you a story. There was a royal official who was very knowledgeable about the Buddhist sutras. He has read and studied them all. Why? It is because it satisfies his ego. He studied the sutra so he could be better than most people. One day, he visited a Zen monk and posed a question. Master, I have read in the sutra that the great chiliocosm could be fitted to be completely within a seed. I don't think this is believable. How can the great chiliocosm be fitted within a seed? I think this is a mistake, created by those who wrote down the sutra, or was misinterpreted. Today I ask that you give me some guidance to clear up this matter. The master replied, I have heard that you are very knowledgeable of Buddhist sutras and have read and studied thousands of Buddhist literatures. Isn't that true? Yes, that is correct. Every chance I get, I would have read and studied the sutras, the royal official replied. The master then observed the official's physical stature and said, looking at you, you are probably not taller than 1.6 meters. So where do you keep thousands of those books and articles that you have studied? A-di-đà Phật. After hearing the question, the royal official stayed quiet and thought for a while and bowed to the master and said, Great Master, with that one question, my mind has awakened to its original form. From this point forward, I will not raise any doubt on the sutra's teaching and the enlightenment message of Zen. Do you hear that? There are many who have read the sutras but still have doubts. This is a fact. If you do not know of your original mind, then the phrase, the great chiliocosm can be fitted into a seed, could not be accepted. It is similar to saying that all the thousands of sutra books can be fitted within a body frame of someone who is only 1.6 meters tall. How can that be? We are talking about the way of the mind. If you understand it, then you can mentally shrink anything to be as small as a particle, or expand it to be as wide as the great geocosm, or the 10 directions. Nothing is beyond the reach of your mind. Now back to the text. Existence is emptiness. Emptiness is existence. If it is not so, then don't be attached to it. When you heard the first two lines, then many of you would think of the familiar lines in the Heart Sutra. Form is only emptiness. Emptiness only form. These two lines represent the highest meaning of the original mind. Existence and emptiness are dualistic views that the common man chases after. But to the awakened, whose mind is always quiet with no thoughts, they are not tied down by forms and emptiness. In their mind, form is only emptiness, and emptiness is only form. Feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness also have similar relationship to form and emptiness. If you are not enlightened, you could not describe it in words. Today, Master Tang Sang reaffirmed the relationship between form and emptiness. Why is there a perception difference between the awakened versus the common man when talking about form and emptiness? It is because the awakened have realized the concept of non-duality. From no thoughts or non-arising, the idea of non-duality is realized. If you initiate a thought, then a dualistic view will also come about. But if you want to maintain a non-dualistic view, then you must always maintain no thought. Now back to the text. One is everything. Everything is one. If that can be established, don't worry about not finishing. When you heard these 4 lines, you probably thought of the phrase, all dharmas come from the mind. This means once the mind is active, then thousands of dharmas would come into existence. Whereas if the mind is silent, then thousands of dharma would settle and the mind becomes silent. Therefore, Master Tang Sang said, one is everything. Everything is one. Once the mind is active, then the mind creates everything. But when it is silent, then everything goes back to one. If that can be established, don't worry about not finishing. Zen Master Ma Tu said, mind is Buddha. For those who are awakened, they do not leave their mind. They would have their mind to always be at one with the Buddha nature. For the deluded, they run around looking for the Buddha outside of their minds. The Buddha called them outsiders because they do not understand the mind, do not believe in the enlightened mind. The mind and body are one, but when the deluded mind arises, then the mountain, lakes, and many great lands would be generated. When the mind is quiet, then all scenarios belong to the eternal truth Dharma. The person who achieved this state could awaken himself as others. In the small wheel path, the practitioner's main goal is to achieve the Arhat level, which is only self-awakened. In the big wheel path, the practitioner's goal is the Bodhisattva level, which could not only awaken himself, but help liberate others as well. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha said that the arhat could only enter the small nirvana, which is the eternal, unconditional nirvana, not the perfect blissful nirvana, in which there is further birth and death. After the Buddha mentioned this fact about an arhat's limited achievement, 5,000 arhats and monks disagreed, left their seats, and did not want to hear it because they considered their achievement was more than what the Buddha had claimed to be. Namo Ajida Phap. Sometimes practitioners focus too much on their achievement, become biased, and block their original mind. You have to be free and impartial in your practice. Don't practice if you feel forced or bound by a method. I would rather take off my monk's robe and not continue if I have to force my way in practice. You have to practice with a mind that is free and peaceful. You have to practice with the four immeasurable states of mind: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. If you practice for the purpose of only you reaching nirvana, then why do it? I wouldn't. I become a Zen monk so I could help all beings. Whatever I achieve, I want to share it with all beings so they could benefit too. This is my vow. If the conditions are right, I would come and help all beings in all 10 directions, no matter if there are praises, ridicules, or obstruction. I would try my best to overcome them, because my thoughts are to liberate all beings. I practice not only for myself, but also for all beings. Have you ever seen a bodhisattva who has reached his spiritual goal and sits in nirvana bliss for enjoyment? Even Kuan Yin Bodhisattva had to respond with 32 different forms to help beings who cry out for help. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has to respond in hellish world to help out beings when they cry for help. He truly is one of the greatest bodhisattvas who dare to vow, only when hell had no more occupant would I consider become a Buddha. I guarantee you no other person would dare to make this vow. In a hellish world where there are lots of evil acts, then Ksitigarbha is a bodhisattva, because there are lots of beings suffering, so he would come and help them. But in the world where the beings are not suffering, then he appears as Buddha. So in the Western world of Amitabha Buddha, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva can freely come and go. Now back to the text. Faith in mind is not stuck in dualistic. Non-dualistic is faith in mind. The usage of words should be cut off. There is no past, present, or future. With these 4 lines, the Master Tang Sang reminds us to fully believe in our mind, being able to transform itself into a Buddha mind. The Buddha Sakyamuni was able to become a Buddha in this very world that we are currently in, so we could do it also. He was under the same physical limitation and worldly temptations like we all are in right now, but was able to transcend beyond them. We could do this as well because he has shown us the way. Anyone who has this faith of the mind will eventually become a Buddha. When the faith in your mind is complete, there will be no more craving, wishing, and hoping for a way to deliverance. It is like eating a full meal. Then there would be no more desire for food. Therefore, a practitioner who has complete faith will not run to the east, west, north, or south looking for the Buddha, He does not need to go far to find the Buddha, because the Buddha is already in him and needs to be awakened to it. When your faith in mind is complete, then the discriminative views of good and evil, existence and emptiness, love and hate, get transformed into the true or Buddha nature. If you use your thoughts to enter dualistic views, you will be bound and trapped. Use your true mind to enter the dualistic world, to rescue all being instead. For example, if today I said using words tie me down or bound me to make distinction, then who would be able to explain the Buddhist Dharma to you all? Words and speeches can be functional part of the true mind. You have to think deeply about this. When you are not achieved yet, then everything could be false thought. Because when you use your consciousness, there exists discrimination and biases. But when you use the wisdom of the true mind, then this represents compassion for all beings. You use words and speeches to help everyone. You should remember the difference between consciousness and wisdom. The practitioner who has realized his true mind uses wisdom, not consciousness. Non-dualistic views come from non-arising thoughts. When the mind has transcended the conditional biased thoughts, then non-dualistic views are eliminated, and the wisdom of this mind would illuminate all 10 directions. When you meditate and are able to enter samadhi and then the great blissful state, you don't see your physical body or mind anymore. You will see your body become a light source that shines in all 10 directions. At this point, your mind is very peaceful. This is the result of your original mind manifesting itself. So with what eyes would you see this light emanating outward from your body? It is not through your eyes, but from the eyes of your wisdom. These eyes of wisdom can be opened by any practitioner. On the way toward the nirvana of your original mind, words and speeches are just vehicles to help all beings to wake up on the other shore. Once done, you will need to throw away this vehicle. Nobody would be foolish enough to drag a heavy boat through land after he has crossed the river to reach the other shore. Let it go. Let it all go. Once words and false thought do not distract and influence you anymore, then you have awakened. This is why Master Tang Seng wrote, "The usage of words should be cut off. There is no past, present, or future." Have you ever seen a bird flying in the sky, leaving behind its trails? Similarly, an achieved practitioner does not hold on to anything of this world. If he does, then he is only interested in fame. When he came, nobody knew. When he left, there was no need for farewell. When you achieve, you already know where you will be going. There is no need for a send-off. Those who wanted fame, they would wish for a big ceremony with famous people and a big crowd to send them off. This is an example of leaving trail behind once they die. Once a practitioner can leave behind all the words, then he has entered the great blissful state, where there is no coming and going. Blissfulness will always be in your mind, even if you are standing, walking, lying down, or sitting up. I have often told you all that seeing, hearing, knowing, and understanding have no connection to the Buddha nature. Only the one who has awakened can understand this claim. Almost all beings use their consciousness to discriminate, but consciousness and Buddha nature are clearly different. One is consciousness, while the other is wisdom. Once you eliminate words, then you could attain the great blissful state. Faith in mind has now transformed itself into enlightened wisdom, which is the true nature of all the Buddhas in the 10 directions. A-di-đà Phật. Do you see how easy it is to practice? You might have heard of all these austerity practices done by Buddhas and saints of the past. But once you have heard of this faith in the mind lecture, it doesn't seem that difficult. I see that anyone could become a Buddha as long as he or she doesn't initiate false thoughts. After a period of continuous practice, your mind will settle and peacefulness will be a part of you. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. The lecture series based on the writing of Master Tang Seng is now complete. I hope you all have understood the meaning of the writing, so you can continue your practice and be successful in your path. I am here to guide you, but success is all dependent on your effort. If you don't try, then I and all the Masters could not help any further. Nirvana is based on the mind, but getting there is based on your effort. If the Buddha Sakyamuni could magically deliver you all to Nirvana, then today there would be no more suffering from birth, old age, illness, and death. You all should know this world is an illusion and could only trap those who are attracted by it. When there is birth, then there is death. You came here with nothing, and likewise will leave here with nothing. The time in between birth and death is your chance to do things that can be beneficial by cleaning up and clearing up your mind. And if possible, use this cleared up mind to help out all others so they could be free and clear just like you. This is the worthwhile task you should do while still on this earth. Nam Mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật.